Let's freaking go! A very happy 4th of July edition of EHL Live, baby. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Have you popped a firework today? It has been a wild 4th of July, and I think the absolute wildest thing that happened outside of Brian Kelly's national championship comments, which I promise you we'll get to in just a second. They almost canceled the hot dog contest today. What is more American than her stuffing dogs in your mouth? Are you freaking kidding me? So I hope each and every one of you had an absolutely splendiferous Independence Day today. Now, I got sent this quote from Brian Kelly a lot over the past 48 hours. And I'm going to be so honest with you today. You guys know I love Brian Kelly. You do. But what I will say is we tend to get a little uncomfortable with honesty from our favorite athletes, coaches, musicians, politicians, or whoever it may be. And sometimes honesty can be something that makes all of us uncomfortable, right? It is hard to look in the eye a friend or family member when you're being straight up with them. But Brian Kelly was brutally honest in an interview recently. And I understand that it would be in the best interest. Grant, thank you so much for the super chat here. I do agree, staying home for the 4th of July. It can be very wild, the 4th. This is a quote that Brian Kelly gave Brian Poppmeyer, I think is his name, an SEC columnist, and this is via Death Valley Voice. Okay, so let's zoom in just a little bit more so everybody can see this. And this is what Brian Kelly said, quote, "We need another year of recruiting. One more really good year on both sides of the ball, I think, puts us in a position where I think year 3, the consistency piece, the depth of our program, the messaging, all the things we need to do on a day-to-day basis puts us in a position to compete for a championship." Okay, so I'm going to leave the quote up just for a second, and I'm going to let each and every one of you consume it however you want to consume it, okay? Now, I have said that it would be a pretty big disappointment for Brian Kelly if he was not able to actually win or get to the college football playoff, right? I think that should be the goal, especially after you won the SEC West. And of course, if you win the SEC, you're probably 99% of the time going to get into a college football playoff. Now, is this a message from Brian Kelly, maybe to temper down the expectations because we are national championship or bust in pretty much every sport now? Maybe. But I love brutal honesty. I really do. And I do think there is some very strong points made here by Brian Kelly. Now, notice he didn't say any position groups specifically. Okay. I think I know the position group he is referencing. But notice the key word in the middle of all of this. Okay. I think is this word right here. All right. See if I can zoom in even more for our viewers. Okay. Depth. I think Brian Kelly, as far as depth is concerned, is very concerned. Now, why does he feel this way? Well, depth is what ultimately undid LSU last year. I think depth is one of the biggest reasons why they lost to Texas A&M. I think depth is part of the reason why they couldn't put up a better fight versus that Georgia defense. And I do agree that the roster is relatively thin. Now, before we get to all your comments regarding this, I want to just share one very simple truth that I feel is very important to say about Brian Kelly. Remember his first interview he really gave on a national stage was the bowl game versus Kansas State. Okay. And in that interview, they talked about the transfer portal and how quickly he can rebuild the program via the transfer portal. I do think, while that is true, Brian Kelly said, I want to build my program through high school football recruiting. Okay. Now, obviously, the transfer portal, if that didn't exist, we would have been a really bad football team last year. And I think for the second consecutive season, we are relying very heavily on the transfer portal. Okay. Very heavily. Probably not so much as we had to last year, but I think this quote, when he says on a day-to-day basis, I think in the back of his mind, he believes that he wants to build his program via more high school recruiting. And I get it, because if you are able to do that, it does make it a little bit easier to plan out your roster. Who's actually good, who's actually bad, who's actually developing on the right path. I feel as if this is kind of sort of how he feels right now. And I will say that I do think high school recruiting is something that he really wants to be a bigger part of what he is doing now. He has said this kind of sort of in a few interviews, in particular about the defensive backfield. And this will be the second consecutive year that our DB room is just portal, basically, if we're being quite honest. And we lost pretty much all the portal guys that came in last year, outside of course, Greg Brooks. So I will also say this, okay? I do think he is tempering down the expectations just a little bit because he knows how hard it is to win a national championship. I totally get it. But I would also say this. Is this actually a good thing for him to say publicly? I think the power of the written word is very important here. This was not a video interview or an audio interview. At least I don't think it is. So obviously verbally he would have given us probably a little bit more. We probably would have understood, the ebb and flow of the interview. And always keep that in mind. If a quote is written down, it's always going to be very different than how it's actually, portrayed. I do think for me, type Y for yes, type in for no. I'm interested in what you guys have to say in the comment section. Do you like Brian Kelly saying this? Type Y for yes. You're okay with BK being saying what he said, that year 3 is probably going to be our year, or type in for no. You're like, hey, I want my coach to say, I want to win a national championship this next year. Okay. And here's Rancid Cat. Cannot say this publicly. You have to always make sure your team knows your goal is to win it all and believe they can do that. So Rancid Cat coming in hot. Sibley, good to see you. I'll be honest. I'm not in love with it. I'm not, because I do think this roster is pretty good. I do. But I also think he is also motivating his own team at the same time. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. And once again, I would love to actually hear a follow-up or specifically what areas of the team are you looking towards. I also think the bigger point for him is by year 3, I want my team and my roster to be deep enough for us to know that every year we are truly deep enough to win a national championship. To Brian Kelly's point, this team is not that deep. Okay. We know they're deep at running back. We know they're deep at quarterback. And we know they're somewhat deep at wide receiver in terms of guys they know can play Division One Power Five football. Um, on the offensive line, I don't think this is the absolute deepest group. I don't think that that's necessarily controversial. And obviously, tight end, lots of true freshmen. We'll see how they perform on the big stage. Defensively, though, this is not a deep defense. I don't think this is a deep defense at all. Um, I think the first string is going to be very good. After that, I would say each level of the defense is 1.5 deep, right? It's like a good front and then one other player when you need to be no less than 2.5 to 3 deep. Okay. I do think, though, this team should have the playoff or bust mindset. Okay. Let's go to Zach here. Love the Mayo photo. I always love it. DT is deep. 3 nose tackles who probably aren't going to start. All right, Jack, I'm interested to know who those 3 nose tackles are. Or I know who they are. I just want you to tell me who you think is actually great. Okay. We know Wingo and we know Mason Smith are good. We know that. And we know Jacobian Guillory is a very solid player. But outside of that, there's a lot of question marks. There really is. I think Jordan Jefferson is really good coming in from West Virginia. A little bit of a scheme shift, though, from what he did up there. Okay. I think Savion Jones at that opposite end, the Ollie Gay position, is going to be a very solid player. Who is going to be that guy behind him? Is it Paris Shand? Is it Deshaun Womack if he's not going to be made in back? So Guillory, Jefferson, Lee. All right, I do agree. Jacobian Guillory is a really good player. Okay. Obviously, his dad is a big supporter of PHL, so shout out to Kobe. I do think he is a backup, though. I don't want the defense to not start Mason and Wingo together. I think those guys need to be on the field as much as you possibly can together. Now, Mason is not a true nose, but he can play it. And Wingo, we know, can play it as well. He's probably a little bit better served as a 3-tech 4-eye. Jefferson, obviously, I view him a little bit more as a 3-tech, not necessarily a true nose, like a playmaking defensive tackle. And Jalen Lee, I think, obviously coming in, as a part of the 2018 class, I hate what happened to him then. He goes to Florida, and this is my big concern for him. Okay. Florida's first group of defensive tackles played some of the highest snap shares you will see. So Florida desperately needed to rotate their first defensive line quite a bit, but they wouldn't do it. And that is a sign that Florida just didn't trust Jalen Lee to play. And I was like, that's crazy. And when I watched him, he's a decent player. But, is he a true, like someone that you can 1,000% say is a starting nose tackle in the SEC? I think he could be a rotational guy. I really do. And I think he's got really high upside. He's obviously big enough. But, that does concern me just a little bit if we're going to keep it above. Now, obviously, Cody, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. So we'll stay on the defensive line here. But ultimately, before we move on, I'm fine with Brian Kelly's comments. I am. I'm fine with them. I do think a follow-up to the quote is very important. I'll always say this, and I want to say this before we get any further, because a lot of you did send that to me, and that's fine. You guys can send me anything. And I'm not saying that the reporter did anything wrong. I'm not. The power of the written word is so important. Okay. You know, whenever you read, the media or whatever, tweets or whatever the case may be, if someone is quoting somebody, I think it is very important to see if there's video or audio because it does add a little bit. So I wouldn't even if you're one of those people out there that just hates what Brian Kelly said, I wouldn't just destroy him for it. I just wouldn't. I do think it is important to add video and audio when you can. Wingo's motor or Mason's push, nasty. I agree. Now, this part's going to get a little technical. When we start talking about these kinds of things, let's see. Branson, B. Wyman, Wingo, and Smith together are must completely agree. Yeah, I want them starting. I do. No, but I think you split 30 to 40 reps between those three. I agree. I feel most comfortable out of that group with Guillory as a nose. Obviously, the big thing for me for this defensive line, okay, and this gets a little filmy. I understand filmy stuff can be a little strange because obviously, when we do film studies on here, we're breaking it down. I got the little circle and I'm pointing and zooming in and zooming out. The most interesting thing is the style you want your defensive line to play. All right. So Georgia's defensive line, which is the standard now, they are the best. I don't really think you could argue to the contrary. Obviously, we're up there. Ohio State, Alabama. Notice these are the best teams. So, this is a very key position. Georgia's defensive line does not penetrate, okay, especially in the run game. They are taught to not penetrate unless you are a gazillion% certain that you are going to make the tackle behind the line of scrimmage. And this is more so in the run game, okay? And they don't necessarily play a three-man front. I don't want to, box what Kirby does in. But their defensive linemen are high IQ. They play together, and they're very well versed in what they're supposed to do. Trey Scott, one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. It is different though than what we did with Aranda, right? Aranda runs the tight front, okay, which puts as much beef in the middle of that defensive line as you possibly can, right? So, we essentially always had three defensive tackles on the field. So Aranda's tight front is my preferred defense. That is, if I was a defensive coordinator, that's what I would run, simply because it accounts for the interior gaps in the run game. And I do think as we move forward in football, I do believe those types of defensive linemen are just going to be at more of a premium. Those guys stop the run. They clog up holes, right? Now, in order to play that, you got to be unselfish. You got to play together. And that's what made, Fiocco and Richard and Tyler really good with Neil and Siaki Ika. Those guys played together. Those guys played as one. And, Patrick Queen and Jacob Phillips put up big numbers. Last year, we kind of rotated our defensive philosophy where our defensive lineman did more of that. But part of what makes Mason special is he could do the Dorsey get 3 yards in the backfield and make a big play kind of things. What's going to be interesting is, can we meet in the middle there and have, aggressive, penetrating defensive linemen while at the same time staying in your lane and being sound in the run game. My favorite thing about Mekhi Wingo, and this is just, watching him over the past year, is I have never in my life seen a smarter defensive tackle than him. His football IQ is through the freaking roof. And he just does so many little things. Sometimes it's not even defensive line things. It's just small little things. My favorite Wingo play from last year was the Arkansas game. Harold Perkins makes a huge strip sack, and the ball goes forward. Nobody goes to the ball. Wingo was the only person on the field that ran towards the ball and recovered it. High football IQ. Okay. Always go to the ball. Always go to, always, if the ball is on the ground, pick it up. That is a normal rule of thumb, unless, of course, some punt stuff, as you guys know from the Georgia game. We go to Jason, our next super chat. Lots of good chatter on a 4th of July. Happy 4th to all. And before we continue, I want to get a few more people in here to say this. And look, I did not serve. My granddad did, and he means a lot to me. But we do, and once again, it's the 4th of July. We do have a lot of military that watch this channel. Now, 4th of July isn't necessarily a military holiday, but it kind of is, right? Whatever the case may be, just know that I really support our active military that watch this channel and our veterans that watch this channel. There are quite a few of them that do. So just know I really, really do appreciate you guys. I think BK was being truthful, but intentionally downplaying expectations to temper fans. We all want that year 2 magic. Absolutely. And look, I totally agree, Jason. I think right now it's a different kind of high than 2019 LSU, but it's arguably just as special. And this is coming from a majority football guy. What happened? It wasn't necessarily that baseball and basketball, women's basketball, won it all. It's how they won it, right? I saw Cody Worsham tweet something out about that earlier this week. It's how it was done, right? It was jarring. It was spectacular. It was colorful. It featured a lot of drama. It featured superstars, first round picks, Angel Reese playing for Team USA right now. So yeah, I mean, this is wild. This is absolutely wild. So shout out to Dylan Cruz and everybody getting the job done. Yes, and happy 4th to everyone. I can't wait. I get to meet Cody at the end of the month. Really excited about that. Let's go to Sibley. Hold it down. The coaches try to understand where the program is in time and space. Every coach notes that their goal is to win a natty, but it is hard to say when it is coming. BK in its time and space. Absolutely. Shout out to you, Sibley. And there you go. Now, next thing, I need to get like 60,000 more subscribers tonight so I can get an invite to the Michael Rubin party. Are you kidding me? Do you see Shiesty there? I'm going to put up Joe's outfit a little bit later, and I'm going to let you know if you guys think I should rock this outfit. That's coming up, so that's why you got to tune in, man. PHL, you didn't know. We are a fashion channel. TJ, my man, we hopped on a call for the first time, me and TJ, one of our many patrons. Don't forget, if you are a PHL patron, when you sign up, you get a Joe Burrow card from me in the mail. Patreon.com/LSU football. And you get access to all our film studies. I'll tell you this. Nobody has watched more Brian Thomas Jr. than me over the past 2 weeks. We just dropped our super deep film study on BTJ. Really excited about his future and his big season ahead. But yeah, shout out to you, TJ, big time. So yeah, TJ, you get to pick the next topic. Go right on ahead. TJ or Cody or Jason, you guys could pick the next topic. But yeah, I also think for me, and I wanted to touch on this just briefly. I also think Brian Kelly wants to really evaluate how LSU recruits. Okay. Obviously, LSU has done a really good job of recruiting. We got a good class coming up for this 2024 cycle. Obviously, I know a lot of you are excited about Colin Hurley, Trades Green, and everybody that's uh, associated with the state of Louisiana, but it is still early. And I want to say it is still early for two reasons. Okay. The first is we are still a good little ways before signing day. And yes, of course, how the season plays out will sometimes affect your current recruiting. All right. The next thing I do want to bring up, all right, I do want to bring this up just once again. I'm going to do it again before the Florida State comment I made in the last stream. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a trigger warning. If you guys want to leave this live stream and go get more leftover dogs from the grill, potato salad, as long as it doesn't have raisins in it, I'm good. Actually, I don't even like potato salad, but I hate raisins. So if I ate potato salad and there was raisins in it, I would just want to jump into an erupting volcano. But still, if you guys want to leave before what I'm about to say, that's perfectly fine because it might be a little uncomfortable. I totally get it. Okay. So breathe in, breathe out. Our rivals right now are killing it on the recruiting trail. Okay. They're not doing good. They're not doing great. They're killing it. Okay. Texas A&M earlier today picked up a commitment from my favorite wide receiver target for LSU, and that was Cam Coleman. Okay. Rob, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Rob's one of my BFFs here. We chat pretty often, honestly. We haven't actually called. I think the last time we talked was a month ago. So, yeah, we'll get on a call pretty soon. But I appreciate it. Rob's been rocking with me for a while. So, Texas A&M got Cam Coleman. They also got Draylon Miller. Those are two wide receivers we were after. Obviously, Miller was always going to be ahead of Coleman. Coleman visited LSU not too long ago. I like Coleman better than Miller, but they're both really good players. I really do think so. And they're both going to Texas A&M. Then Alex January, defensive tackle, we recruited pretty hard. Picked Texas. Okay. Weston Davis, a defensive or an offensive tackle, picked Texas A&M, and we were really after him as well. This is part of the deal when you watch the channel. I'm going to give you some harsh truth. That was a little concerning, just a little. Now, once again, we could obviously flip some of those guys. I don't think Cam Coleman's going to be one of those guys. I wish, but I obviously think those other three we have a little bit better of a shot. But yeah, it's a lot of the schools that we play are doing really well for 2024. Florida is having a really good class for 2024. So, when I go to Grant Super Chat here, doesn't matter if they're killing it. From what we've seen lately, many of them will end up jumping into the portal. That's why before this, I said it's still early. I don't think it's time to panic. I don't. Okay. But I just bring it up because sometimes we just tunnel vision our own class. And LSU put a lot of time and resources into recruiting a lot of these kids, getting them here on visits and that kind of stuff. It can be a little deflating. It can. I'm just sharing, just realities of how hard it is to try and convince these kids. And normally it's a minor W when a kid goes to a school that's not in the SEC. But despite Texas A&M sucking, despite Texas being the most mid of mid schools, despite Florida sucking, they're still recruiting at an extremely high level. So, it goes back to what Brian Kelly said He doesn't want this to happen. And he wants to build through high school recruiting. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't want to give up on the transfer portal, but I just wanted to put that out there. Most kids who commit don't flip. But as Grant points out, they very well could enter the transfer portal pretty quickly. Now, this is a good question here from Zach and Rob. Don't forget, you pick the next topic. TJ says, I agree, Josh. You can't trust any of these verbal commitments, especially now. Culturally controversial. Good to see you. Let's see who else I missed. Big Al and Desi. Good to see you. Health is wealth. Good to see things are going with Desi. Shout out to her. Okay. Lots of smart people in here tonight. Going after less high-rated Louisiana kids that will stay a while instead of the out-of-state 4 to 5 star that might jump for the money next season if they aren't a starter, like Tolan. I agree. A lot of these guys jump. I'll tell you this, all right? This is the value of having a Louisiana kid. Now, I'm going to share with you just a few things, and to go along with what Grant is saying here. There are some states, some states that don't have the highest hit rate at LSU. They don't. When we get a kid from, state X, some of them don't pan out, right? And you would be a little bit shocked at how many from out of state just don't work out. Okay. And Louisiana kids do hit at a higher clip. They just do. Now, obviously, I'm going to be extremely biased towards that for 2 reasons. Number one, I always cheer for the 3-star kids. It's just kind of, the underdog mentality. I wasn't the biggest, fastest athlete, but I played 4 sports and I made it work. And I'm always going to cheer for Louisiana kids, as most of you probably will. Let's say probably 90% of you probably are from Louisiana or have really strong Louisiana ties. Okay? But it does show. It does show. Okay? And sometimes and look, in this last class, there was sometimes I was like, I kind of like this 3-star Louisiana kid better than the guy that you spent all the time and resources to go get. And that's just kind of eye test and doing just a little bit of research. But yeah, I did to go along with that. I will say this, and we'll get to whatever TJ, Rob, or Grant wants to talk about next. I, at this point, would ask every time I go to recruit a 3-star out-of-state kid, number one, do you think he would really buy in to what we're doing? Number two, are they easy to deal with? And then number 3, can you really envision this player being special? And if at least 2 of those 3 things you don't feel 110% on, just give it up. Honestly, just give it up. Okay? And look, if LSU lands Colin Simmons, it all doesn't matter. Because he's a difference maker. That's him. That would be the guy that moves the needle for us. I'm not saying other kids can't. I'm just telling you, that's the guy that for me moves the needle the most. Might not be for you. Okay? That's not some kind of bold opinion. I think everybody knows he's good. Aaron, they're talking to you on the phone yesterday. Good to see. I love getting one-on-one time with our diehard PHLers. Good to see a lot of people that kind of linger. They just kind of linger, and then they're back. You miss them for a few, like Zach. Miss him for a few weeks, and he's back. Good Tuesday Night Live. Good Tuesday. I'm going to need y'all to keep me in your thoughts and prayers if you believe in the metaphysical. We, of all faiths and backgrounds, if you don't believe in anything, that's fine too. We welcome everybody. But we got some big things coming up on the channel. Got a big potential opportunity for PHL. So I'm going to need your positive vibes. I've been working really hard on some new things that I think would take our channel to the next level and could take things to the next level for you. And yeah, it's pretty big opportunity. So beyond, I just need those positive vibes from you guys. I really do. Normal guy, he's been rocking with me for a while. Good to see you. What movie is this? This isn't. I'm bad with the Disney movie screenshots. I'm really bad with it. Let's see. I want to make sure I welcomed everybody in. Clint, good to see you. He wants a chance with Quincy Wiggins. I still think he is probably a year away, but physically, I think he obviously can play. One thing, John, good to see you as well. AP. Yeah, it's true. Jay Johnson has killed it in the transfer portal. My biggest thing, though, would be as far as there you go, LA Mom, Alice in Wonderland. My biggest thing to that, though, AP, is like college baseball recruiting is just so much harder. Just so much harder than college football recruiting. Now, I'd say college football recruiting isn't really hard. It is very hard. But with the 11.7 scholarship thing, I still don't know. Like, it just enrages me every time I think about it. But Jay Johnson is killing it. So there you go. Chef Leandria, good to see you. You owe me a steak if I make it to Phoenix. That's crazy. So Leandria, I need to hit up my dude Bradley Beal and say, hey Bradley, on the way to DC, pick me up, bro. But he's a Florida Gator, so I don't know if I'd be hanging out with him. Well, this is a good question. What do you think Jaden's stat line will be this year against Florida State, passing, rushing, and total TDs? Very good question. Now, total stats, it's always hard because, it just depends on the flow of the game and all that. I think the more important thing, TJ, is a stat that I use called QBR. Now, I know a lot of you have your different thoughts about ESPN and the worldwide leader. I grew up only watching ESPN. That's it. That's all I watched. And Breaking Bad occasionally. But, I grew up, Stuart Scott. That's all I cared about. Stuart Scott's calling the highlight. Okay. It's all I cared about. I was glued in, zeroed in. So, obviously with the layoffs and all that stuff, it really bothered me, but still. So I've always liked ESPN. I like their college football coverage, so on and so on and so on. But I think one of my favorite ESPN developments is their QBR score. I think, with the QBR on a grade of 0 to 100 makes it more digestible for fans. I think stats, it's better to actually make it a little bit more digestible. And, like the NFL quarterback rating just sucks. 158.3 is the best score in college. It's another score, and we have no idea how it's computed. ESPN QBR is kind of like that as well. We really don't. We're not. Well, I'm not smart enough to fully understand it, but ESPN QBR takes in EPA per play. And my favorite thing ESPN QBR does is it calibrates for how good of an opponent you're playing. And last year, Jaden's QBR versus Florida State was in the mid-80s, which is really freaking good, right? If you are in the 90s and above, that means you're elite, okay? 95 means you're a god. That's what Burrow averaged in 2019, okay? And for me, Jaden's QBR was in the top 15 last year in all of college football. It's really good. Really, really, really good. So for him to pull off an 85 QBR with, the offensive line that we had in that game, if he puts that out again, we should win the game. We should. Totally agree with my buddy Blake. I'll be on AYS tomorrow night, 7:30. Be on the lookout for that. I'm always there for my homie Blake Ruffino. 250 passing, 150 rushing, 4 TDs, 2 rushing TDs. 500 yards, 200 rush yards, 8 TDs. TJ's going ham. I think he has a crazy game, 250, 100 rushing, 3 total TDs. I love it. Zach with a good point. I wonder what the record is for the most starts ever. I mean, he's got to be after he has 15 starts this next year. When he has the full 15 starts, it's going to be nasty. And I don't know if I could shave a beard. I can't grow a beard. You see, I got this coarse hair, and it itches like crazy. I can't do it. Like, I had a full beard for a while, and there's a photo somewhere of it, and it's not pretty. I looked. It didn't look good. It did not look good. Oh, man, a Bic razor? Oh, man. Maybe Manscaped would sponsor that shaving. But yeah, I'm interested about this Phoenix steak. Like, if we had a Phoenix steak, is there something special about the Phoenix steaks? I mean, is Kurt Warner coming to hang out? Charles Barkley, Kenny Anderson, Dan Marley? Who are some other famous Phoenix athletes? Oh, Kevin Durant. If Jaden has 8 TDs versus FSU, I will do it. Shave them all off, man. Now, here's what's crazy. Speaking of 8 TDs, so Joe Burrow had, I think, 8 total TDs versus Oklahoma. I think he had 7 passing and 1 rushing. Or it might have been 6 passing and 1 rushing. Either way, I hate myself because I like memorizing this stuff. We scored so much it was hard to keep count. Well, what was nuts was, I think, I know for sure it was 7 passing. Either way, Joe Burrow shares the record with Tim Couch of Kentucky and Tim Couch of Kentucky and Brandon Allen of Arkansas. And Brandon Allen was his backup for the longest time since. I say the longest time, for like 3 years. All right, look. So someone actually sleuthed and found the photo. Look at this. Do y'all want to see my beard? Do y'all want to see it? Type Y for yes. Type N for no. I'll put it up here. I mean, it is. It's gonna make you itch. Like, it is like that. Oh my God, Hayden's gonna kill me for putting this on the screen. Oh man, this one actually doesn't look too bad. Look at this. Nathan wants to see it. Nathan hadn't commented all night. Let's see, let's load it up on this thing. By the way, while we wait, underdogfantasy.com. Promo code Carter. There you go. Here we go. It's here. Let's go down here. And bang! Look at that thing. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. I can't even keep a straight face right now. Look at that thing. I can't believe somebody found it that quickly. That is wild. How do you guys know this? Oh, man. What is wrong? Ellie Mom says that's scary. I look like a character from a Spike Lee movie. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. I look like a GTA character. There's no way. There's no way. Look at that. I look like a GTA character. I don't know if I look like Harden's cousin. Man, I wish I had James Harden money. I wish I had James Harden's invite to go to the freaking party last night. Goodness gracious. When Kevin Hart is not in the top 5 people who freaking is like top 5 most famous people. Now, that's the DJ beard. Look like somebody's uncle. So Joey B was there. I look like Arkansas Rick Ross. Oh man, I could go for some Woodstock right now. I don't think Rose was at the party last night. Oh man. All right. So type Y for yes, type N for no. I am interested. I saw this question pop up. Do you believe Harold Perkins should remain an edge defender, or do you believe Harold Perkins moving to the inside was the right move? So type Y if you believe Harold Perkins moving to the inside was the right move as an off-ball linebacker. I do want to put this up here. So this is Shiesty's outfit at the all-white party yesterday. I love this fit. Look at Joe. And I always love that he's rocking the LSU bands. Now, I did give Joe some booger bands, but I don't think one of these are the booger bands. Only one can dream. But I love this outfit. DJ Khaled was there last night. Odell was there too. Look at Shiesty. Look at him. Look at him. Woo. I love it. Don't forget tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7:30. I'll be on with Ruffino on the growing NYS network. Let's go. But he also moved to edge at times. I do agree. Yeah, I think he'll still rush off the edge. I don't think Matt House would not let him do that. I do agree with that. I also think Harold Perkins as an edge rusher uh, is obviously a very potent thing. It was awesome. But keep in mind that this wasn't like a guy like him and a guy like Will Anderson aren't the same kind of player. They're both very dominant. They'll both make a $1 gazillion in the NFL. Um, but keep in mind, one of Harold Perkins' most fruitful roles last year was actually as a QB spy. So, getting back into defensive theory, like we were talking about earlier, we would put him right behind the head up nose. And the first time we did it was versus Mississippi State, and he destroyed it. And I think, Blake can attest to this, and anybody that played offensive line can attest to this. The one thing that bothers an offensive line, right, is moving pieces to confuse them. Okay. And we lost BJ Ojolari. BJ Ojolari could rush from any of the four positions outside of, like, obviously the most interior. But we put him on a guard quite a bit, and he won a lot versus a guard. But Harold Perkins can rush from any angle. And he is so good at basically anything that has to do with being a box defender. Outside, for me, there's only one thing where I feel he's a little bit behind, and that's holding the line of scrimmage versus a run. I don't think that that's what a lot of true freshman linebackers are good at anyway. It's tough because in high school you were just more athletic than everybody, so it didn't really matter. You were oftentimes the same size as the offensive guards you went up against. And anybody that has played college football will tell you this. To me, as I have gotten older and as this channel has evolved, the more I look into high school recruiting, whether it is just with my own two eyes, looking at huddle tape or looking at analytical studies or just opening up, the transfer portal browser window on 247, the biggest jump from high school to collegiate football is the offensive line play. It's just so different. It is so different. Like, high school offensive lines, they rarely have more than three guys on the line over 250. Okay. And if they do, one of them is just sloppy. You know what I'm saying? College is just so different. Like, everybody is freaking athletic. Hell, D2, D3 offensive linemen are solid. They're all 260, 270. So yeah, I mean, the Perk is just so good at everything. I think that's going to be the next step in his evolution is being an overall better run defender. And look, and this will come off wrong, but this is just how I see it. It's easier to find complementary pieces at running back and at wide receiver. At offensive line, you're out there. There's no rotation hardly at all. Your five guys are your five guys. And you got to have at least 8, probably closer to 9. That 2011 group, they were 9 to 10 deep. Remember this. Lyle Collins is the best offensive lineman we've had in the modern era. Highest 5-star recruit and probably the best since 2000. Okay. We can discuss a lot of different names. So he's probably the best. As a true freshman, it was hard for him to get on the field. Okay. Because we were so deep. Doesn't mean that everybody's got to be just great. It's just hard. It's really hard to find bodies. There's more defensive linemen that turn into offensive linemen. It's hard. And when you look at transfer portal data and you look at all these things, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. And I say all of that because, for Perk, that next step is going to be being more consistent, defending against the run. Also, everybody knows him now. Like, I mean, he was so good last year, and he won so many games for us last year. There's going to be a more consistent effort for teams to just come out and say, hey, look, LSU's loaded. We know they got 4 and 5 stars everywhere, but we're not going to let Malik Neighbors beat us, and we're not going to let Harold Perkins beat us. We are going to force everybody else to beat us because, those two guys won us most of the games last year, outside of course, Jaden and Wingo and a few others. So, but those guys are huge. Right? I just think in particular they're not going to let Perk just dominate. So as good as Harold Perkins is going to be, we need PHL guest Ovia Gufu to make himself a lot of money. We're going to need freaking Jalen Lee, we talked about quite a bit earlier. He's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, right? 2018 happened, or 2020 happened, and it is what it is. And now he decided to come back home, play for the home state school. It would be nice of someone of his size. You guys know, you can pause me all you want. Thickness is I love thickness. College football in the SEC, your weight matters. It does. He's a big dude. It would be very nice. Okay. Brick, good to see you. Hell, Rick Rose might have some eligibility left. Rose. Woo. Joseph, good to see you. TLV, good to see you. It's really hard as pause worthy too. But thickness, you guys know I love me some thickness. That is my thing. That is my thing, y'all. My athletes in the SEC, boy, better be ready. Let's see here. Happy 4th to TLV. Yeah, good to see you. 256, good to see you. I will say 256 has had this profile photo for forever. So if you're new, this isn't anything new for him. He said July 4th is every day. So the usual suspects, who will have that potential to take that next step? Obviously, I think the one guy that a lot of people would love to see would be someone like Chris Hilton, right? Who's gone through all these injuries and all of that. It's going to be very hard, though. It's going to be very hard because Kyron Lacey is someone that the staff is really pushed. I'm hearing it, and it's all there is to it. I mean, you can see it on social media. They really want Kyron to be that guy. We saw him in the spring game, but we've seen, you guys are the Richard Murphys and all of that, the John J. Kirkland spring games. It is just a spring game. So Kyron is definitely going to be someone that's going to get the opportunity. But, I'll say this. I know Blake and Brian in particular, BT, Aaron Anderson. This is it. Now, I am a jersey number snob. I think single digits. I don't know if Branson Cat is still in here or not. I think the single digit thing is a real thing, and especially Uno. Uno, baby. The biggest, baddest LSU receivers wore Uno. A lot of them did. Brandon LaFell. Jamar Chase. Okay? Quantavious Leslie. That's a deep cut for you. He wasn't really that good, though. There have been quite a bit that are more Uno. And obviously Keyshawn at his peak. So Aaron Anderson's given Uno. There are just so many stories from people that preach how good Aaron Anderson was at Carr. Nationally televised game on ESPN had 2 punt returns for a tutty. Guy has serious wiggle. Okay. Carr athletes are built different. Okay. So I'll say this. I know I just know this, but I know Brian Kelly loves him some Aaron Anderson. Okay. Actions speak louder than words. If they were really worried about Aaron Anderson being rusty, I think they would have tried to get him practicing by the spring. They said, nah, not worth it. So this is it. Randall. War number 2, unfortunately. But I like your thought process. Ruben Randall was really good. AJ Bama, good to see you. Let's go. Hit Stick, he's been rocking with me for a while. Good to see you. Y'all, are you calling me a Cajun? Because yes, Cajuns are crazy, but still. Florida State, Bama, Texas A&M. We're winning all those games this year. Sorry to break it to you. The game that concerns me the most on the schedule, I'm telling you. Telling you right now, is Missouri. I swear, that game just gives me a queasy feeling. It's always been the case. Anytime that I see any powerful team go to Missouri, it is hard to play your best football there. It is. It's not easy to get to the stadium. It's a whole lot of different things. They play a lot of 11 a.m. home games. That'll be on back to back. Play Ole Miss the week before. We know Lane is going to make us work for every defensive play that we have to make. Brady could duel the quarterback. I'm telling you, y'all can hate me all you want. Okay, y'all can hate me all you want. That Missouri game concerns me. It just does. Okay? I don't know why my camera did that. Let's see. All right. We'll just go to the low def. Talk to Mason Lunsford. Yeah, I think he'll play. I think he'll play a good bit. I do. Okay. As much as I love KJ, I just don't love that roster. I mean, receivers are not that great. They're tight end's a little tricky. They got some youth there, They lost their center, who's a really good player. Got drafted in the third round. And defensively, I mean, their defense is all portal. Almost everybody on that defense is not a high school recruit, whether it's a year one or year two portal guy. It is ridiculous. They got a 5-star transfer from Georgia. We could do this with pretty much every SEC defense. There's so many portal defensive players. Outside of Bama and a few others, their defense, Ole Miss's defense is pretty much portal too. But yeah, if Arkansas if every one of their transfers hit on defense, or at least some of them do, they'll be okay. I'm not in love with their roster. I'm just not. I think skill guys is where they're going to run into some trouble. And I also think, I think for them, Dan Enos is a really good play caller, but Kendall Browse is like really freaking good. I mean, it is crazy when you sit down and watch him and you watch Lane, how much like offense those guys just generate by the play design themselves. It's ridiculous. They're so creative. They're so smart. So yeah, I'm not in love with them. I do think their schedule sets up a little bit nicer for them this next year, though. And BYU is rebuilding and they're on their schedule. TJ, it's been a while, man. I've been missing you. Hit me up anytime, man. Let's see. TJ holding it down in Texas. Lots of Texas PHLers. Washington. So you're going outside the SEC. I think Oregon is definitely that team. I think Bo Nix is a very good Heisman bet. I do, at his odds. I'll tell you this. Voter fatigue will set in with Caleb Williams. If it is close between Caleb Williams and somebody else, I don't think the Heisman voters want to give Caleb Williams a back-to-back award. And it could be kind of a Nikola Jokic kind of situation where if Caleb is fully healthy, it's pretty clear he's the best player. He plays in an offense that puts up big numbers, and he plays on a team that doesn't have good defense. So his numbers might be so good that he's going to be the guy. But if Bo Nix has a really good season, I think a lot of Heisman votes will fly in for him, as it would for Jaden or just any other quarterback, just to make sure there's no back-to-back winner. That's just how voters operate. There's just voter fatigue, right? But playing play and he doesn't get hurt, he is the best player. So I like Oregon in the Pac-12. I think Texas is so far and away the best team talent-wise in the Big 12. I do think their quarterback room is a little bit overvalued. And I was going to say this for a little bit later just to juice up the conversation, but you do see the title of this video. Does Texas have a better quarterback room than us? And the answer is no. I'm not even sure if I put Texas quarterbacks room in the top 5 in all of college football. Yes, there's a lot of stars. Yes, there's 2 of the biggest name recruits the sport has seen with Quinn Ewers and the reclassification. And then obviously, you guys know I'm a big Manning guy, but Arch Manning, and is he overrated? Is he underrated? As far as recruiting stars are concerned, they're as loaded as they can be. I just don't see it with Quinn Ewers. I think he's a little overvalued. And I think Malik Murphy, and look, Sidley's in here. I know it. There you go. But yeah, Texas, I mean, this is their year. This is their year. Okay. As far as like sleeper teams in the SEC, I do like Missouri. I really do. I'm a little bit higher on Drink than most. One of I on the Power Hour SEC channel, I did not lose an over-under last year. And my favorite play was Missouri over the 5.5. And they almost beat Georgia. They should have beaten Georgia. And then they should have beaten Auburn. And they still cleared the over. So they lost 2 games really in the fourth quarter and honestly overtime versus Auburn, I think they're solid. They get Luther Burden back, they get their quarterback back. I think Blake Baker, we saw how good of a coach he was at LSU. I think he's a pretty solid DC. Um, I think they can get to 6 or 7 this year. I do again. Um, I do like that. Now, one team that I think is going to be very sexy is South Carolina. Fade them, not necessarily because I'm not a South Carolina fan. I think obviously Shane Beamer's done wonders at that program, but their schedule is brutal. They start the season with North Carolina with the best quarterback that they've ever had at North Carolina, and then they end the season with Clemson in a revenge spot. Now they get that game in South Carolina, but that's two non-power five or two Power Five teams out of conference that will both be ranked in the top 20 before the season begins, and both have 5-star level quarterback play. One in a 5-star recruit and one in a 5-star NFL prospect. So I'm fading South Carolina because that's not only a tough schedule. We didn't even get to the SEC slate. So if they get to 6 this next year, it's really good. Now, look, I've done radio in South Carolina for years now. So I think most Gamecock fans want to see another step, especially when you see your team throttle playoff caliber teams. So there you go. Auburn, I don't know. Number one, they got to pick the right quarterback, and then number two, I their defensive line is going to be interesting. They lose Hall, who destroyed us, destroyed practically everybody you play. He was a really good player for them. Who's going to be their pass rush next year? We'll see. But yeah, I obviously upgraded coach. I think he is a really good coach. So there you go. Scrapo, good to see you. We overachieved this year. Texas has to prove itself. I agree, Sibley, especially someone like you that puts a lot into obviously both LSU and Texas. Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. I think even Texas fans aren't liking all the hype from the analytic people and all that stuff, but I think Texas Tech's going to be very interesting. I like what Joey McGuire has done. I like that Texas Tech went outside the box with the hire to just get a guy that knows Texas high school football, knows Texas high school football culture. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Now, what's crazy to me is I just realized I didn't have my mic plugged in this entire stream. So I have this device. I've been working on some other projects, so I haven't had my microphone in this whole time. So I've been going back and forth. I didn't even plug this in, so I've been talking into this thing. I don't know. There you go. Let's put that in. There you go. There we go. Should sound better. I'm sorry about that. I just noticed that. I was looking at it, I was like, wait, why isn't this in that? Like, why is this in this? No one batted an eye. I started golden. It's good. So golden. Ta-da-da. Yeah, Harry Styles. TOV changed his photo to Doggo. There you go. There's something better than that. Doggo photos are best. Roger Dodger, I want to shout out Roger Dodger. He helped out another PHLer in need. I really appreciate you, Roger Dodger. I don't know where Michael B is tonight. Nathan, I put $7 on Colorado to win the Pac-12. Yeah, $7.50. I think Deion might bring some magic. Okay.
So I'll share this, Nathan. I'm not making fun of you. All right. Because obviously I am not a winning better because nobody is a winning better. In the long term, nobody really is unless you are truly good at it. Now, with college football, I did have a really good year last year, but that is never guaranteed. Okay. I remember 2020, I got slaughtered. I was like, God, I just wasn't good at this. Um, but there is a lot of public money coming in on Colorado. Okay. And that's how they build their castles. A lot of these long shot bets. Now, I will say this, Nathan. I am always going to cheer for the common man, the common woman when it comes to beating the book. If Colorado were to win the Pac 12 or even just go over their win total, the casinos are going to lose big time because there's going to be a lot of public money coming in on Colorado because they are the team. And they brought in a 5-star corner receiver in Travis Hunter, and they also brought a Shador Sanders, who could be a really good quarterback for them this year. And they also each other all that. But what I would do, Nathan, is go look at Colorado's practice footage, and you will see some of the scrubbiest scout team guys you will ever see because they didn't have numbers. I mean, they gutted the roster and they brought in all these portal guys. It's going to be a fun experiment this next year, but I just oof. I'm cheering for you, Nathan. I am cheering for your $7. Now, if it does pay out $7.50, I expect you to become a PHL patron with that money. Okay. I do. That is true. Is a big improvement if they can do that. Top 5 players we play this year. Honestly, there might be multiple on Florida State's team if we're being at a buck here. Uh, let's just go. Jordan Travis, Jared Verse, who both play for Florida State. And Kool-Aid McKinstry of Alabama. That's basically it, just like kind of off the top of my head. I'll put KJ in there. I do think he's really good, but yeah, I'll give you 4 right there. But I would say Verse, Travis, and Kool-Aid are definitely on there. So there you go. Not a stir guy. I just think he's dirty. I do. Now, is he good? He's pretty solid. Pretty solid. But yeah, this question just kind of stuck in the back of my head here. Let's see. Right. Oh, here's what we'll do. We're getting close to the hundo mark. Okay. Um, if we get there, I'll mail out this Patrick Queen green refractor card. Obviously, PQ a guest of PHL. This card is actually in here upside down. Now that I look at it. So we'll send this out. We're close to that hundo mark. And we'll send this out. This Tyrann Matthew Saints card. Look at that. It's good stuff. Oh, okay. South Carolina and Houston. Man, that schedule. They are good at quarterback and you have a good receiver, but they lost their best tight end and their best running back, Marshawn Lloyd. It's a big loss for them. We should be able to outscore every team. True. This. I kind of hope our offense goes into every game not trying to necessarily just play the opponent. I want our offense to go into the game to bludgeon the opponent. Put up as many points as you possibly can. Because sometimes you would see, our offense just kind of get caught in the flow of the game and just be a little conservative. If the game's like a lower scoring defensive game, we won't take as many shots, we won't get as creative. And I hope we're the offense next year where we are just laying it on everybody. And look, to Carvis's point last year, we were not top 10 in game control. We were actually outside the top 30. And normally, teams that win their conference or their division, they're in the top 10 in game control, which basically means when you play, you're beating your opponent into the ground. Now, it's really hard to do that, but that's normally what the best teams do. Okay. Once again, it's not an easy task. It's not easy at all. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to kill teams. You can find a way to get into the playoff, winning a bunch of very close games. It's just, when you win close games, those games become coin flips. One bad call costs you the game. One coach's decision costs the game. One fumble costs you the game. But if you beat the brakes off of everybody, you could have one bad quarter and it not matter. You're so golden. Time for Josh Williams and Noah Kane to grind out some second quarters. TJ said Louisville is a good team to bet on. They have a sneaky, weird home field advantage. They also, I believe, TJ, play a lot of Friday games, or at least I think they did last year. Algiers, America. I think BT's in here. He knew a lot about this documentary. I need to watch it myself. Okay. So how do you measure game control? Essentially, there's many ways you can do it. But one way is when you as a team have a win probability of 95% or better for any certain game. Okay. So it's a very analytic kind of driven thing. So what you can actually do is go to any ESPN box score, and at the box score, I could actually pull this up for you right now, Sibley. I'd happily do that. All right. Let me actually do this for a game. And this was one of the first videos we've ever done on PHL. Okay. So let me pull this up right here. Some of you find this cool. Some of you find this nerdy because it's kind of like, I don't know how it's the actual formula behind it, but you guys see these win probability charts. So this was 2019 LSU. Okay. And this was the Alabama game. All right. So their win probability, they were 6-point favorites. So it started off, obviously, Alabama as the favorites. And you see, this was the first drive of the game where, they're deep into our territory. But you see, we dominated this game. Okay, so where you get a dominant score for win probability is right here when you get up to 95% or better. Okay, so as you can see, our win probability for the most part stayed at 95% for a good portion of the game. Okay, now that's essentially it. So if you are at this point, you get points for dominant game control. Okay. So there you go. Logan Diggs and John Emery. Yeah, of course. Yes, Georgia's getting in. And the reason why, okay, let's say they lose one game. Well, if they win the SEC championship, they're getting in. That game just holds so much weight. And that's why, the schedule in particular is very, very easy because, let's say they do just lose one game, they get that home game at that neutral site. It's a neutral site, but it's technically a home game. So there you go. Yeah, what's up, Justin? Everybody, welcome Justin to the channel. And Pegasus, they're still getting in if they're undefeated and they lose to us. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. In the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. But if you do super chat, we'll keep this thing going. Now, don't forget tomorrow at 6 p.m., we'll do a brief live stream. We'll go for 30, 45 to an hour. So type Y for yes, type in for no if you'll be at the 6 p.m. live stream tomorrow. It is in particular for our friends on the East Coast that can't stay up late because we normally start at 8:15. So we'll do a brief 6 to 7, and I'll be on AYS at 7:30. So there you go. All right. Yeah, I mean, if you get a big third down conversion late, yeah, TLV's got to get the yard work done. There's a better photo. I like that one. Got both the doggos in there. Money. That's why. You get a nice fat $5 million check or something like that. And it's good for, the sponsors and city and all of that. But yeah, it is, of course, we would much rather play the game in Tallahassee and the return game in Baton Rouge. And then, of course, there was that huge LSU Florida State brawl in the Bowden era. But really, there's just not a whole lot of history. I'm not taking Mbappe questions. Not taking Mbappe questions. Unless he's going to Liverpool at this point, I do not care. I'm happy with Liverpool's recent signings. I don't know a whole lot about him, but I do know that they are going to help us win the treble next year. We will dismantle Arch in a few years. Let's see. We actually did get close to the hundo mark. Let's go. Drake? Drizzy? I like Drizzy. I like old Drizzy. We are short 40. We're at 61 in particular, so we are short 39. We would need what would it be? $38.02. But then, of course, YouTube takes a cut of that. But yeah, if we get there, or if you guys super chat, we'll keep going. That's always a policy. There are some other things I do need to work on tonight, but I don't care. I could stay up all night and do it. If we get to a hundo, we will give these two out to one of you. Iron Matthew and Patrick Queen? Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? A Bill called me delusional. I like it. Let's see, is there anything else? I did an underdog fantasy draft today. Let me know what you guys think. Like, I'm honestly believing this Chargers offense next year is going to be crazy. But I also think like in every sport, there's always one guy that you can see is like unbelievably talented. There you go. TLV got us there. So who is going to win the PQ and Tyrann Mathieu card? Now, TLV's generosity did get us over the mark. So, and this is by far the biggest super chat of the night. Y'all show some clap emojis for TLV in the chat. Shout out to Grant. Cody's always very generous. Jason, TJ, Rob G, one of my besties for the resty. So I think most people would want TLV to get the PQ and the Tyrann Mathieu. TLV, I don't think anybody would be mad if you said yes. So TLV, I'm going to give you the opportunity if you want the Tyrann Mathieu and the Patrick Queen card. I'll send it out tomorrow. So Justin believes it should be TLV. This mosaic card is really nice. So TLV, I've gotten to know him a little bit over the years. This doesn't shock me. Okay. So we're going to give it out to the next person. All right. So let's see who deserves this card. PQ. Let me take a look at the chat really quickly. Who's been very active in here? All right. This is who I'm going to give it to. Or keep it going with the Carver's next super chat. we are going to give this to Grant Yenny. He is on a super chat streak, and he's also a personal friend of mine. We go all the way back to college. So, Grant, you are the winner of the Tyron Matthew and Patrick Queen card. So, Grant, let me know if you're still listening. This is going out to you, man. I don't think Grant's won anything on PHL, which is crazy. So, this is going to you, my friend. I really do mean it. He's a really good friend of mine. So, congrats to Grant. The 1-of-1 Terrace Marshall. We got to get to 5K views on the. I got to look at it. I got to get 5K on the TJ video for us to give out the Terrace Marshall big card. Okay. Do you think Brian Kelly feels a lot of pressure due to women's basketball and men's baseball team at all? I think the pressure for him is more so on himself. He knows his legacy is going to come down to winning a national championship at Baton Rouge. And he knows that the blowback from traditional media is going to be pretty big if he actually doesn't get it done. Just because, he went against the blue blood. He went against Notre Dame. He went against, going somewhere to uncharted territory. And that's just the truth. So I think there's always just going to be more pressure just in the lens of football with Ed Orgeron and Les winning a title and winning a title. So yes, I do think it does add more pressure with Kim and Jay, especially with the 5th-year quarterback. How many games does Nuss play? Okay. So this is my bold Garrett Nussmeier take. And this upset people when I did this, but a few months ago. You guys know I'm a big fan of Garrett, and I'm a big fan of Jaden. I collect their memorabilia. There's Jaden bobblehead right here, and we've given out some Garrett Nussmeier, some really nice Garrett Nussmeier autograph cards recently. So I think Garrett Nussmeier should start versus Grambling. I do. I think it's the second game of the year. I think Michigan did something very similar last year, and it does give you it gives Garrett the chance to actually start, which I think is good for his future because, if he he's never actually started a game, and that would be good experience for him actually being the guy. But he's going to be so experienced by year 4. It's would it really mattered? I don't know, but I understand why BK wouldn't do it because he doesn't want anyone to think that he's not having confidence in Jaden Daniels or not taking the game potentially as seriously or whatever. But I do think it's good experience for Garrett Nussmeier. It doesn't mean you don't have to play Jaden. You can treat it kind of like how you treated the Purdue game last year. But yeah, I think Garrett should play a lot. I do, and I think he should play in some actual competitive games. I think so. Now, if Jaden is lights out, you can't take him out. It's just like if he comes out, like we're throwing out stat lines earlier. If Jaden gets out there and just destroys it next year, it's honestly just not going to matter, how much you, me, or anyone loves Garrett Nussmeier. Jaden's got to be the guy till the wheels fall off. But I do think Garrett's going to play a lot next year. But as Branson points out here, what you want to happen is Jaden plays so well that the thought of Garrett Nussmeier doesn't cross your mind. Now, as far as statistics are concerned, you want Garrett Nussmeier to start if you are a receiver because you're just going to get more targets. It's just how it is, right? Because we did a film study the Brian Thomas Jr. film study, where it was a good decision by Jaden to tuck and run that one play versus Alabama. It was not a big play winning the game, obviously, so it wasn't a big deal. But it would have not been a good decision for Garrett Nussmeier to run, and he would have stayed in the pocket and probably threw the football potentially to Brian Thomas Jr., who was open. So, when you have such an elite dual threat quarterback, there's just not as many targets to be dished out. There's not as many touchdowns to be dished out because, he runs in quite a few touchdowns. So yeah, it is such a radically different style. Here's a very generous and longtime supporter of mine, Blanche. Blanche, I think you've been with me from the beginning. Game is in Baton Rouge the week after Alabama. Coach Smith, good to see you. Great live tonight, y'all. Lots of good energy. So we'll do it again. In the next 5 to 10 minutes, we'll keep it going if you super chat. If not, we'll be on our merry way. So I'll answer as many questions as we move a little bit later. It doesn't have to be LSU football related. It can be LSU baseball. It could be NBA. It could be Joey Chestnut. You can ask me about anything. No, it's all good, TOV. And TOV, you could pick whatever topic you want, by the way, as you know. Modern era. We did this recently. Cruz, Burrow, Reese, and the last 10 years. Cruz, Burrow, Reese, and Mondo. Let's do that. I think it played a role. It definitely played a role, but it did make it a little bit more compelling. A little bit. I think the only way to make the hot dog eating contest more compelling is bring Kobayashi back. Now, I don't know what the hell happened with all of that, but Kobayashi Chestnut, it was peak, and I don't think it'll ever get back to that. Should the Pelicans go after Damian Lillard? Okay. Love this topic. You guys know I love the NBA because the one thing I really hate about the NBA. So growing up, I only I mostly watch the NBA with my dad. I watched LSU football and I watched the NBA. But my dad was a big Jordan guy. And we just watched a lot of NBA and nobody sat out. There wasn't load management. You guys know all the issues. But to me, the NBA is just such a it's a monopoly on the world's second most popular sport, where there's going to be issues. There's always issues. And what is happening right now with Damian Lillard and the way the discussion is surrounding him, and we'll get back into football, but Carver did super chat, is I hate these people that say, well, Portland needs to do what's right and send Damian Lillard to Miami because that's where he wants to go. I hate that. That drives me up a wall. Drives me up a wall. Okay? No, you owe it to your fans. And I'm a big guy. Huge guy. So this idea that you should cripple your own team. He is generationally wealthy because of the Blazers. I'm sorry. The Blazers don't need to send him anywhere. Now, should the Pelicans go after Damian Lillard and put him and CJ back together again? I'm down. Huh? 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 I'm totally, totally down. And I get why Dame would go to Miami. It makes a lot of sense. They actually are a really good fit for each other. And just from a compelling standpoint, I think that would be very compelling if he went to Miami. But and that wasn't even a Dame thing. Dame is trying to do what's best for him. I get it. I just hate the way NBA media and NBA fans are saying, "Hey, Blazers, do what the f he wants to say," because he's Dame and he was loyal to you guys for so long. And I'm like, shut the f up. No, shut up. Because you know what they say. Russillo had a really good tweet about this. They say, well, if you treat Dame wrong, there's not going to be any free agents that would ever go to Portland. Who the F has ever decided to go to Portland outside of Scottie Pippen? Nobody. Nobody. Okay. But if I'm down. I'm down with putting Dame on our roster. I'm down. Totally down. Now, would he be happy? I don't know. But I'm totally down. But I think I don't think that's happening. I also think the West is just too deep. Okay. Send CJ back for Dame. Man. Dame's going to go join Cristiano Ronaldo in the Middle East. That's crazy. Or wherever Ronaldo is now. The sauce. I don't even know where. I'm horrible with geography. Or actually is Saudi Arabia? Let me see. Okay, so it's next to Egypt. Under Iraq. That's crazy. I see Doug in here. What's up, Doug? Like, no, I didn't know specifically where it was. I knew it was in the Middle East. I was like, that's right. I was like, where exactly is it? My best friend is from Yemen. This is kind of crazy. So you are the third person, Edwardo, that watched the live stream, I think, then went outside and popped fireworks and then came back. So Yemen is right underneath that. My buddy would destroy me. Shout out Ahmed. Oh man, sending Zion to Portland. And I've never been to Portland. Grant, don't make fun of me. I can get these cards out to somebody else. I can't. I have not mailed these out yet. Let's see, where are we on the BTJ views? I don't think we're going to get to 5K, y'all. Okay, we're kind of halfway there. We're at 2,160 views. I know where Portland is. I'll say no to the player empowerment. I don't like that term just in general. But I do agree that there are just there's just a lot that's wrong with it. There's just a lot. I just the idea of conferences is stupid. There's no need for the conferences in the NBA. And now you have an NBA where the West is way better than the East. Like there's so many better players in the West than the East. And then you have the regular season that just sucks. It's way too long and it's shoved down our throats that it doesn't matter. So more than what 80% of your entire product is being told to all of us that it's meaningless. Tickets are still sold full price. Parking is still full price. Doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense, honestly. Oregon as a state is amazing. Portland is bad. Yeah, I've just never visited. So I've never watched Portlandia. Shout out Fred Armisen. What's up, Chance? Oregon it seems like a beautiful state. I need to go visit. One of my really good buddies lives in Seattle, so I need to go to Washington. I could maybe make a Portland, Washington thing. I do think the NBA needs the Sonics. Now, Everett, you've had some bad takes, but this one takes the cake. Okay? It has nothing to do with politics or anything. You can't just say the whole West Coast sucks. That it's just so not true. Like it's just not true at all. Okay. I've had friends from Louisiana move all around the country. The ones that moved to California moved back the least, particularly the ones that live in LA. And look, it's expensive. Every city is expensive. Not as expensive as LA, obviously. But yeah, I mean, still. 80s, 90s basketball was so much better. Agreed for the 90s. 80s, 90s, yes. It was. But then, those are my favorite players. It was Jordan and Shaq, right, dominating the 90s. And then obviously early 2000s meant a lot to me. The beginning of the LeBron era, and then Vince Sanity, T-Mac. My favorite NBA era was the 2000s to 2010. But yeah, man, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, God, just love those guys. I really, really, really did. Duncan, Kidd, Nowitzki. Celtics, Pistons, Bulls. Don, I agree. I'm a 2000s NBA guy. Bird, Magic, Dr. J. Malice in the Palace. I mean, yeah, that wasn't great at all. But to be honest, there is something positive that came from that, in that nobody got seriously hurt. At least I don't think so. And nobody died. Okay. I won't get too deep into like other fan disasters and whatnot, but it did, especially in the NBA where the fans are right there. It did open a discussion with fan etiquette and how both sides of the equation needs to behave, and it was very bad. I'm not gonna smush that down, but it was crazy. At least I don't think anybody died at the Malice of the Palace. I mean, there's, I don't know. I don't think so, though. I'm pretty certain about that. If I could eliminate, I would eliminate load management completely if I ran the NBA system. Okay. So how do you do that? Is the question. Well, it's hard to enforce this because Joe Schmo could say, "Hey, it's my knee. I have knee ache, knee pain," and all it takes is a physician or whatever. Or you could say, "Man, I'm just not feeling it today. My mentals and all that stuff." And mental health is obviously a very serious thing, but still. Here's how you do this. All right, Branson. NBA season needs to cut 15 games and be spread out more and find players for staying without injury. Have to report you play 16 hours before so I don't show up and pay LeBron money to see him sit. Okay. That's all great. I do agree. Shortening the games or shortening the season, spread it out more. Totally agree. Eliminate back-to-backs. Back-to-backs are dumb. Have to report you won't play 16 hours. Okay. Carver says no, keep 82 games. All right. Now, there's a saying. I saw someone on Twitter say this. I don't know who originated this idea. Okay. But it's a saying called success leaves clues. All right. Success leaves clues. Now, what does that mean? Well, we could have Adam Silver get people from all backgrounds to create a playoff schedule or just a new regular season schedule. Or what you could do is take a look at how other leagues do their scheduling. How do they do it? And I'm telling you, I know a lot of you are not EPL fans or not European soccer fans or whatever. They don't have playoffs. They just don't. And their leagues are the best leagues in the world. They're run by far better than any American sports league. And I know I shouldn't be saying this on 4th of July, but I've done this before and I'll say it again. Once you learn how they do their things, relegation and all that stuff, penalizing teams for losing, Cliff Notes version of relegation is when you finish in the bottom 3 you get sent down to the minor leagues in soccer. So, in essence, if you bought in the NBA, get down to the G League, and the G League has 3 teams there to replace those 3 teams. Obviously, would never happen because you lose money. In professional soccer, you lose money. All right. So that's not what they would ever agree with that. But the bottom line is to make players not sit. You need to do 2 things. You need to make the regular season count more. Okay. And you also, and this is the biggest thing, don't give fully guaranteed contracts. Don't. I'll tell you this. Have you ever wondered, NBA needs to realign the conferences spells in the East? I agree. Now, if I was an NBA player, all right, I'm going to say this from the bottom of my heart. I would want to make the most money possible. I would want to make the most money possible. You want to know why? Because you would want to make the most money possible. All right. Now, there are some instances in professional sports like a Travis Kelce or a Tom Brady where they take less because they're in such a great situation. But more often than not, you want to make the most money possible. I would want to make the most money possible. One of the biggest things in the NBA is your contracts are fully guaranteed. You earn the amount of money given to you no matter what. Okay. You could sit out games and you're still getting paid unless you're suspended. Okay. You still get paid, even if you don't play. You sit on the bench, you're making the $200K per game that I think Steph Curry makes or whatever. You still get paid. You still get paid. All right. Now, I don't agree with how some of the taxes work in the NBA for the players. So if you signed a $40 million deal, you're really only getting like 20 million of it. Still, it's a lot of money. Still, whatever the case may be. I would make it to where if you make the playoffs or if you play X amount of games, you make your full salary. But if you don't, we take $1 million off of it. Or it could go percentages of how much you actually make. Players would play. Players don't like to lose a dime of what they are owed. They just don't. Okay. Now, of course, the NBA PA, which is a very strong organization, they would never agree to that. But it would make it better for you. And it's not asking too much, just play. Okay. Kawhi Leonard started the whole load management thing. Yeah, in theory, it was pop. It was honestly pop. But this is unquestionably true. Unquestionably true. Pooh Bear, what's good? Happy 4th to you, my man. Let me know if you're still in here, Pooh Bear. I'd appreciate your thoughts on this. Yeah, players are just so much smarter now. Like, you know, you make so much guaranteed money in the NBA compared to all the other sports. And there's just an abundance of games. And every player, every coach, every fan, every analyst tells you that these games, the 82 games, don't mean anything. It's just a crazy concept. Once again, if you, and I've done this, Haley watched this at the Glebe Hotel in Liverpool, England, when I was talking to English fans about what I do and how American sports work and all that stuff. They are perplexed at the idea of of playoffs. One guy was like, wait, what? You play all these games and they don't count. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And baseball, and like you said, baseball, the baseball makes good money, but it's also the same thing, right? Like there's a big fun baseball discussion, okay? Huge fun baseball discussion about Shohei Ohtani. And Ohtani is obviously the best baseball player we've ever seen and all of this. But what was interesting is I was reading this on Twitter thread, and one guy said, none of this matters unless he does it in October. None of this means anything. What? Like what? So essentially, that mindset is telling you, why do we care about any of it? It's crazy to me. Like, if you've been to an NBA game, you know how expensive it is to go to a game. It is expensive to go. And they tell you, hey, it doesn't matter. And by the way, another discussion that the NBA is not ready to have, and the NHL as well, and the MLB, honestly, is why are these playoffs a series? In no other level of basketball or hockey is a playoff a series. Now in baseball, I get the idea of having a series because you play baseball games in series. But that just doesn't make sense to me. Growing up, I didn't think about it this way. But if you really break it down, why do we, at the absolute highest level of professional basketball, all of a sudden decide to say, look, how we normally decide who the better team is, we are going to randomly turn this game, which is never a series, into not a best 2 out of 3. We're going to do a best 4 out of 7. Completely changes the game. So, look, we all have our own theories about how we should do it, how should we determine a champion, and so on. Long story short, for me, we should celebrate regular season champions more. Because if we do that, it makes the value of the games you go to better. Okay. And number 2, we should ask more questions about the actual league structure. Now, you understand why I'm so passionate about the 8 versus 9 SEC schedule. Part of the reason why I becomes okay, there's been all kinds of fireworks popping around me. This last fireworks sounded like an AK. Okay. And there have been shootings around here. I honestly thought that it was going down. But the reason why I'm so passionate about college football is the structure. Do I like football the best? Is it my favorite sport? Yeah, it is. And is soccer my favorite sport? Yeah, it is. But I love the way their leagues are structured. I'll tell you this. If and Haley was with me about a month ago, we were up early for whatever reason. I think Z woke us up. And we sit down on YouTube, and the World Women's Rock Climbing Final was on. I turned it on. I was hooked because it was for everything. You're watching these athletes, their whole lives compete, and there was 5,000 people in the crowd for a rock climbing final in Sweden. I loved it because it meant everything. Hot dog eating contests. It's the biggest eating competition on the planet. It's worth everything. The more immediacy you add to games, the better. Ohtani's not going to be with the Angels. He should definitely go to the Mets. Definitely. Yeah, no, I trust you, Justin. I understand. I shouldn't on the 4th of July be saying, "Hey, you know what? In England, they got it figured out." Huh? 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 But it's true. I'm telling you. I'm telling you right now. Once you understand how the English Premier League or any Serie A does it this way, which is the Italian league, La Liga, they do it this way as well. Kind of, sort of, but still. Yeah, but soccer has flopping. Guess what else has flopping? And it's honestly just as bad. I'm serious. It honestly depends on the soccer league, but still. Soccer does have flopping, or like they call it diving. There you go. I always love a good late night NBA discussion. And then there's been these discussions on Twitter. You are guaranteed 48 minutes in an NBA game. You get paid $1 million just to show up, or if you score 5 points, you get $50 million. Okay, so would you just take the $1 million, or would you play a 48-minute NBA game to score 5 points to get $50 million? Kylian Mbappe, he was at Ruben's party. We're talking about California. Okay, so when two LA soccer teams play each other, they call it El Trafico. It's so funny. They call it El Trafico. And if you're a soccer fan, you know the most famous rivalry in professional sports is the El Clasico, when Barcelona and Real Madrid play. So instead of El Clasico, they call it El Trafico. Get it? Because I don't need to explain the joke.
That would damage the car. That would damage it. You understand? Not any in the industry. I've seen Babe Ruth cars come in penny sleeve top loaders. So when you have that, okay, just so you know, that doesn't wreck the car.
PHL Idol. It's going down. I think we're a week away. Well, I actually need to do a better announcement. So I might have to push back again. Plus, I also want to give you time to I've got y'all's first recordings, but I also need you guys want to do one of your own original songs. I'm going to give you some time to do that as well. I'm excited for PHL Idol. We got to get Billion Idol though. All right, guys. Your boy got work to do. The night is still young, man. We are popping bottles, baby. Tomorrow night we'll be back at 6 p.m. We can continue this NBA discussion, but we probably can't till Thursday because it's a brief live stream tomorrow at 6. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. And tonight we are doing some Snoop Dogg pork chops. Let's go. Oh yeah, really quickly. Shout out to our top super chat TOV. Grant, the winner of the Tyron and Patrick Queen cards, Rob G, TJ, Cody always holding it down, Jason, my homie. I love it.